Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Mortgage Heroes Weekly Podcast. I'm Andy.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Will.
We are careening towards the end of the year, guys, but it is starting to look like 2025 might have some optimistic viewpoints shared by many more people than I thought. A lot of economists and analysts saying some things that I think that we mostly will agree with, but I want to get your opinion on a couple things, specifically with rates, because there seem to be all over the place with the rates. But I pulled together a couple articles today for us to talk about. We're going to, of course, be celebrating Christmas week next week, but wanted to make sure we talk kind of rounding out 2024, looking at 2025, and share some opinions, whether we're right or wrong. That'll be told later, but let's try to get some opinions today and share some projections with our people, see what they should be preparing for. Sound good?
Sounds great. I just can't believe that the year's almost over.
It's crazy. I feel like,
wait a minute, didn't we just celebrate Thanksgiving? It was just, I feel like we just got off the ship, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, and here we are, but there it is.
And
we just celebrated your birthday.
Yeah, I know. It's already going to be 1 week again. Oh, my God. It's ridiculous.
yeah.
Fun times.
The time seems to be flying by, and it's not getting any slower, but it's also not going any faster. It just seems like that.
Yeah.
Nuts. Yeah. So from the top today, guys, we're going to go with 2025 mortgage predictions, your playbook for a winning year. Now, this is kind of more of like an insider article, and I say that because sometimes Housing Wire puts things out that are more for the originator, for the sales practitioner, for the branch manager, that kind of thing. But the reason I brought this one up is because this includes things that are great best practices for people who are aspiring homeowners, and, you know, It right out the gate says, 2024 was a roller coaster. Yeah, duh.
I like that.
It was in some regards, and it was also really slow moving in others, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know how you guys felt about that, but I read that right away. I'm like, yeah, it was a roller coaster, had some ups and downs, but like it also seemed really slow.
Yeah, but you know what?
It's like a slow roller coaster.
Yeah, but I liked it actually when I read that right away. It started off good for me because it was a roller coaster. We came from 2023 being, a low year with inventory, and it was just pretty crazy. Just getting your mindset ready for 2024, and then 24 started a little bit, slower. Then it picked up, and then we saw the thing with the rates. March, April rates got worse, so we started seeing things stagnant. June, I made the move.
Yep.
Right, to the new company. And then next thing you know, we got pretty darn busy.
Yeah.
And that's when rates were actually going down. And out of 900 some, Mortgage Heroes came out on the top 15, which was freaking phenomenal.
Yeah, congratulations, by the way, guys.
Yeah. That was great. That was a great thing to watch and see of how we just got super busy. And then, here we are, December. I'm going to say 3 years prior to, we're super slammed.
Yeah.
And it's like the brakes just hit again, right? Because October rates started going up again.
Same thing as last year.
We started seeing same thing. We kind of had the pass through. So I like that. For me, it did feel like a roller coaster. I wish it was like if it was slower in the September time because it was a great time.
I think they're just missing a word. I think they meant emotional roller coaster.
Emotional.
I think that's what they actually meant.
I think
2024, the emotional roller coaster in mortgage.
There was a lot of moments where I feel like everybody was like, "Oh, it's back. Rates are they're coming down. We're so back." And then 1 week later, no, dude, it's all bad. We're going right back to high rates. But I think it was, ups and downs. There was moments where rates did dip, and people were able to snag the lowest rates of the year. But then again, there was months like October where people got the highest rates of the years, and same thing. So I think moving into 2025, we will see a little bit more stabilization now. Seeing the trajectory. I mean, even though inflation's still high, I do believe the Fed's going to act and still continue their course of, bringing rates down. So into the new year, that might help a little bit more. But I think we'll see a little bit more stabilization than the last couple of years as far as rates. And I do believe that rates will, fall in between that 5.5% to 6% range in 2025. Okay. And, given months, they'll probably be higher. Given months will probably be lower, but I think, they're pretty accurate on that. And I want to hope they are.
So one of the things that they talk here about is that, 2025 is set to stabilize. It's one of the predictions is that, even though interest rates were unpredictable this year, and I want to come back to that in a minute, but I want to talk about the stabilization argument for a second. Like, do you think that 2024 was stable? Because it's like on one, I understand the argument or the opinion that, it was roller coaster, but I also saw a lot of stability. You didn't see like price spikes go through the ceiling like they had before. You didn't see like moody rate swings like we had done before. And there was like a kind of like a pretty steady moving along the course with real estate this year. It was not, the headlines weren't like drastic and dramatic and, this is falling apart or this is going gangbusters out of the way. it seemed like it was pretty stable. Yeah, no?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it was stable because we started seeing an uptick in inventory prior to the other years. Remember, everything's about supply and demand. When we don't have enough supply, there's going to be a lot more people not on the fence, but wanting to buy these properties because they're going to feel the whole FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. And so now that we're starting to see an uptick in the normalcy in inventory, and with rates being as high as they are, that's what is allowing the inventory to actually start climbing. We're actually, what I like about the article too, it's actually talking about 2025 seeing a little more normalcy, having more buyers coming into it where things are going to be more negotiable in their favor. So it's actually pretty good stuff. I mean, we're seeing that. So absolutely right.
So you think that this year kind of is the beginning of the stabilization, and next year will just be more of a continue. We have the benefit of looking in the rearview mirror now, like the entire 2024.
And I was going to agree with Will because I think it was stable enough compared to the last 3 years, 22, 23, and then now 24. I mean, 2024 was a lot better in a lot of measures. So even though it still wasn't what 2021 was, what 2020 and the years before that, it still was a lot better than those 2 years where it was tumbleweeds, you really had to really strap your boots on and get out there. But now it was a little bit more hey, okay, we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. A lot more sellers came out, like Will said, more inventory started popping out, and then again we started getting that interest of buyers, hey, I want to start buying again. So we start seeing that demand creeping back in, and even though it was a wonky year, we still saw more transactions than the two last years. So that's a positive sign in itself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're going from 2022 having the historical lowest inventory recorded, which was 250,000 homes available, to right now we have about 682,000 homes available. I mean, that's a big, and our normal is about 1 million. So we're about 20-some% off from our normal.
And the fact that didn't squash prices, I think, is a healthy sign for people who are existing owners. It might spell trouble for people trying to get in because, we haven't seen a price correction or a steep price correction, depending on the area you're talking about. But it is interesting that it went from such a low inventory, which helped maintain elevated prices, and now we still have those same elevated prices, even though inventory has now come back.
Absolutely.
And honestly, I believe that this next year, it's going to be a lot more active than these last couple of years, and I think people should start now getting ready because people are used to, knowing that rates stayed high for 2-3 years, that prices are going to be remaining where they're at. And I think that's going to, just by the nature of the market, attract people to start transacting even more because they're now used to the fact that, hey, well, nothing's budged in the last 3 years. We still want to make this happen. Now that situations didn't happen the way that we wanted to, at least we know what we can predict and we know what's actually happening based on the last 3 years. So
exactly.
It's
And
now I can make my decision.
That's what I like about the article. It talks about that. It talks about strategies for first-time home buyers. Aim for a 640 credit score for FHA loans and down payment assistance. Obviously, we know credit is everything, right? The higher the credit scores you have, the better terms and conditions you'll receive, when it comes to obtaining financing in anything. That actually works for credit cards, that works for car loans, for whatever it is, business loans, whatever you have. They're always going to run your credit to see your credit worthiness. And so the higher the credit, the better it's going to be, the better terms you'll receive. So I agree with that. Also it says aim into saving money. Being prepared. Even though there's down payment assistance programs that will give you grants, etc., there's always going to be an earnest money deposit that you'll have to put in.
Yep.
And there's always going to be, sometimes, the seller or these down payments won't always cover all your closing costs. So saving money and putting your credit where it needs to be is going to be a favorable position to be in as you look forward, forecasting to purchase a home in 2025.
I think just to add to that, the down payment assistance program, it's so important to understand that, unfortunately nothing's free. And you're going to pay, that fee or that money that's being given to you one way or another. And sometimes it comes in the form of lender fees. So
correct.
Just make sure that you're well advised when, using those programs.
Something I want to make sure that if you guys don't mention it, that I mention on behalf of you and for people who are interested is get started early. I mean, I know we kind of always say that, and I'm sure maybe I can become blue in the face from saying that, start early, get prepared, put yourself in a position to win. But it's true because kind of no matter the season, no matter what the market is doing, whether it's volatile or it's stable, there's an on-ramp towards homeownership. It's not like you just want to go to the store and buy milk and eggs. It's there. Oh, you expect it to be there. You can grab milk and eggs. You walk out the door. It ain't like that. It's like the opposite of that. There's way more prep you got to do, and it takes a lot longer. And so if you think that, you want to buy a house in the spring of 25, start now. If you think you want to buy in the summer of 25, start now. Do it now, because at least if there's something you have to cure, correct, or fix, or save a little more money, whatever it is, you have plenty of time to get there where then you can actually still hit that goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I do I'm going to go back to the article here. It says, if 2024 was a roller coaster, 2025 is shaping up to be a championship game.
Yeah.
And every buyer, seller, and homeowner has a shot to winning big.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that?
I agree, because I think you're either going to be in the game or you're not, and that is just true. That's just turning out to be the tail of the tape. When it's all said and done, we went through the trudge of 2023. We've now seen all of 2024 except for our last 2 years here. So right now it's shaping up to be what it is.
Yeah.
Prices are where they're at, inventory is where they're at, and rates are where they're at. And everyone talking about looking for one of those to drop to drag the other two with it, it just hasn't happened.
Yeah.
And then I think that this whole priming that they're doing for interest rates, like, oh, they're going to be in the 6s or mid 6s or even low 7s.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll touch high 5s and then come back to 6 again. That's all conditioning. When I read stuff like that and I hear analysts say that and I see people projecting that, I go, this is all conditioning, that they think this is where it's going to have to stay to maintain whatever outcome they're hoping for. And it's all priming. It's all conditioning. So I think that 2025 is going to be great for the people who say yes. And it's going to be, you're going to find yourself further and further in the line the more longer you wait to take action.
Yeah.
And I like one of the things that they mentioned, pro tip of the day, today's market is buyer friendly. Many sellers are willing to offer, 2 to 3% of closing costs. And I have seen this year was the year that I saw the most closing costs given, and sometimes in excess, where it's like, okay, well, now you get to do a 2-1 buy down and pay some closing costs down. But one thing about, going back to what you said, it's going to be a championship year. I think strong teams and strong players win championship games. So I feel that, depending on who you're really partnering up with and who's really guiding you is going to determine whether you get those really good benefits from the negotiation.
I agree.
Because not everybody has that strong suited negotiation, ability. Not everybody is very well, good at networking and has a great, book of business. But all that plays a part in this industry right now, where everybody can offer the same, but how do you differentiate yourself? By knowing your stuff, being able to negotiate the best terms for your buyer. And I think that's going to be a huge differentiator of who you work with in 2025.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I champion going into 2025, right? So I made a move mid last year in June for my birthday. I actually I rewarded myself by changing companies. I've been with the same company since 2009, which is great. But you always got to seek opportunities. And in this case, I kind of saw myself, how do we take advantage of opportunities? Well, one, we want to be very diverse in the products that we can offer, right? We want to surround ourselves with like-minded people who are winners out there, who give you the proper tools and strategies to make sure that you're successful so you can pass that on, to your clients, right? And so one of the things that I feel that's really changed is I can actually now represent a lot of the home buyers that I represented here in California in different states now.
Yep.
So that's a huge win.
Massive.
A lot of people like to stay within their own, sphere of influence, friends and stuff like that who will help them get there. So I am glad that you brought up that point.
And that's a great summary of one of the highlights of the year for me, is making that change allows our clients who have been successful with us to continue having us moving forward in what their endeavors are. And I wrote this yesterday. I was writing somebody and I said, listen, we have a whole handful of people who may have done their VA loan here. We may have done their IRRRL, the refinance, but then they go to a conventional loan in order to go and do something else somewhere else. And now we can go with them. They can take their team and their coach and their trainers and their massage person and their chiropractor. They can take all their people with them because being restricted to California didn't necessarily mean as much back then that it does now. It has completely changed. People are way more migratory. We have a lot of our active duty and veterans that are leaving California to go somewhere else later, and they couldn't take us with them. Now they can. I think that was an awesome move.
No, it's all great. So talking about the roller coaster, right? If you talk about all these things, it's just preparing us for that next freaking, either down or going up. We're just trying to prepare ourselves.
Here's a segue for you. We were on one roller coaster for a really long time, and now we're at a whole new amusement park.
Hey-o. There you go. But yes, absolutely. Opportunities for buyers and sellers, in 2025, stable market and motivated sellers create favorable conditions.
Yeah, I agree. There's going to be, a landscape for opportunities. And as long as you stay informed and proactive, you're going to be able to, snag yourself something that you're looking for.
Cool.
So, I like this article.
Yeah,
very
great.
optimistic. And it's always good and refreshing to see optimistic things. It's not always doom and gloom, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially given the nature of things to have they've been in 2024, it segues us nicely into the next one, which is the housing market outlook. And this comes from Fast Company, which is usually more business focused, but this one's about real estate. And this research firm that is making a 2025 home price forecast. Yeah. In summary, the idea here is that it's predicted that U.S. home prices will still rise in 2025 by 4% and again in 2026 by 4%. Now, this is not coming from one of our traditional sources like Altos Research, CoreLogic, but I didn't find any flaw in their rationale.
No, I'm with this 100%. I mean, that's what I used to use always. As a matter of fact, today I was watching Patrick Vince David, and he had a cool little graph. I wish I had my cell here.
We're
right?
eventually going to get him to say his name right.
You know, yeah. And so anyhow, there was a graph right there, and it just stated like, you know, it was comparing like the stock market, gold and real estate.
Yep.
And the downfalls, right? And so it was pretty cool just to see that real estate is pretty resilient.
Pretty stable. In
You know,
the
it's pretty stable. It'll just give you that consistency.
Actually, I wouldn't say pretty stable. It's stable because I mean you do look at it like compared to all the other assets, and I did look at that video, and I'm like, dude, it's ridiculous how people are the most afraid of it. But if you look at it, it's the most stable one throughout the years if you compare it to to other assets. But I understand personal preferences, and everybody is comfortable with what they're comfortable with. But I mean, it numbers don't lie.
But it was since 1930, right? That he had that comparison all the way to now,
Which
and
is
we only
ridiculous.
had a double-digit negative downfall on real estate versus, I believe, on the stock market it was like 6 times.
Numerous times, yeah.
You know, in the double digits. We're not talking about like 10. We're talking about 19, 20-some%.
It's one of those things where it's like it's insulated from some things and exposed to others, whereas like the general market can be exposed to entire monetary theory or entire like overwashing policy. Yeah. And real estate can be more specifically altered by policy or theory, right? There's that. And then, but again, I think, when you look at the collapse of 2008, 2009, you're talking about that being entrenched in the overarching financial problem. So it was, I'm not going to say it was a victim of it, but it was definitely along for the ride, along with the insurance companies, along with the insolvency of the banks, along with the reinsurers and all that kind of stuff. There was cataclysmic problems that real estate was a part of. And most people would, I say at this point, probably say was one of the catalysts of too, which I 100% agree with that.
Oh, totally. And
I wanted to bring up to you guys that it's possible, because again, most people don't watch or cover this regularly like we do. Yeah. It's possible that this estimation of 4% in 25 and 4% in 26 being called moderate and modest growth could be overlooked by the years that preceded that, which were rampant and out of control growth. So I want to remind everybody that while you may look at 4% and go, oh, that doesn't seem like it's a lot, and then 4%, it doesn't seem like a lot. Well, in 2020 and 2021, it was 12, 18, 30, 40%. In some parts of the country, their appreciation went up by double digits year over year over year, and now it's moderating back to 4%. Some of those places, honestly, could even suffer a dip and still be up by multiple double digits over the span of a 5-year look back. Yeah. So don't have short-term memory. That's my point. Sorry.
No, well, and here it is, guys. This is talking about nationwide.
Yes.
Right. Parts of cities, they're different than this. They're not even in the 4%. If you look at like our East Lake area, it's more like 8-10%. You know, and then now you're talking about with your average, the median sales price of a home right now. I believe it was like $426.
It's still right around that 420, 425 area.
So 4% on something like that, just to be modest, isn't a bad deal. It's especially with compounding interest, right? Something that Albert Einstein came up with. So
seventh one.
Compounding equity growth. Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, I believe it, just invest. Going back to the stock market and all that, I don't want to say that I didn't want to sound like real estate's better than the stock market. For me, I like real estate. It's always good to diverse yourself. I have,
you got money in the market. I got money in the market.
We all do, right? So it's just, I think the majority of people are more comfortable investing in real estate and just knowing, hey, that's my comfort level there.
Yeah, and I know as you've experienced with the rentals you have, it's like people live there. They're working to live. They're surviving. It's shelter. It's not just it's not a little stock certificate that exists in a folder or in just some digital space in an online wallet. It's a place where someone's living and inhabiting.
And I think that's the difference, where it's like it's more tangible. You can actually show up. It's there. Like it's real. So it's like when it's stocks, it's like, dude, one day from another you can wake up and.
It's like it's just the question to me ultimately just becomes, are you willing to endure what comes with it?
Yeah.
If you're willing to endure what comes with it, then real estate can be a very healthy
Absolutely.
investment category for you, because
Yeah.
what comes with it is going to be tenants, landlord, issues at the property, issues with whatever. And then, but that's not unlike a lot of other that's not unlike a lot of other things.
Yeah.
You can have issues of whether you're collecting art or you're collecting, collectible baseball cards, or you're doing whatever else. I mean, I'm trying to think of something else on the top of my head.
Yeah.
But anyways, the point I'm saying is that, you're going to just get what comes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree. I think you're going to see modest modest growth in 2025, 26, and real estate overall long term is still a very safe investment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
It's right now lack of inventory, right?
bam,
It
boom.
boils
Yeah.
down to that. So price declines. Honestly, it's unlikely for the next year or so.
I don't know where they're going to come from, because again, I'm going to go back to the migratory comment from a little bit ago. It's like people have migrated to these places, and if those places have price declines without a vacancy of population, then the price decline will be moderate as well, because there would only be a collapse of prices if you also have a void of people living there, and that population just disintegrates as well.
Oh, absolutely.
I think, all the drones that are popping up in these cities are going to cause a
here we
lot of people to leave and, sell their houses. So just,
Okay.
put a pin on that one.
You think
My conspiracy.
Are you,
my
how many
conspiracy
applications
theorists.
are you going to take this month for people's reason for moving is going to be drone activity
I
in
don't
my
know,
area?
but I just dropped ads in New Jersey.
Oh my God. Okay, but that does speak to life events. I'm not going to joke about that part, but one of the references is that
Black Swan events?
life events gets overlooked, and we've been saying this.
Yeah.
This is, again, I'm just going to put a little feather in our cap, because we've been saying that all these forecasts may say this, that, the other thing, but a lot of times they overlook life events, birth, death, expansion of family, contraction of a family, work change, life change, whatever it is. Those things are built in their part of that number too, but they often don't get talked about. And they are very much a subset and a base set of normal year after year activity that's just happening because it's happening.
Exactly.
Well, that could rule a lot of things that have nothing to do with finances. Like now you have to move, you lost your job. It's like, oh crap.
Well,
Yeah,
money
exactly.
doesn't matter. I gotta
Yeah, I mean, it's
get this
certainly
house sold.
it's like it's like if you had like one of those what do you call it? What ways?
Seesaw?
A scale.
A scale,
If you had a
okay.
scale and you're like putting marbles on it, and like 50 of those 100 marbles are life events, and you take all those 50 off, like that makes a big change. So the life events being part of all these calculations but getting overlooked is why I kind of devoutly hold that position I have a lot of times about where we are with inventory and money and all that. It's just because there's always some of that baked in.
Yeah, I mean, there's always these situations. I mean, as a matter of fact, it just brought me to a story I'd like to talk about yesterday, an actual situation, because this person wants to build a couple ADUs on a property she bought 5 years ago, right? And so after doing the math and doing everything, she was stationed in D.C. here, then she got stationed in D.C., just retired, and the math wasn't mathing, on building the ADUs. And so she's just been very emotionally attached to this property. I want to build an ADU. She currently has it as a Airbnb, and I suggested, well, why don't you put a pickleball? There's enough. Instead of doing the ADU, put a pickleball,
that's a great
little
idea.
court in there. Excuse me. And then, put a cornhole, and that'll help you increase the traction for your Airbnb, attracting more people, and probably even, getting it rented for a higher price. Or I said, since it was you lived in there 2 years out of the 5, and let's just say you didn't, but you got PCS orders to DC, their capital gains isn't there for you.
Yeah.
And so, if you need to fly from DC to San Diego, that could be costly, right?
Right.
A lot of times
Right.
as an investor, I like to see my property and know that I can drive to it, etc. Maybe you just want to sell it, and then that'll free up your VA, and she doesn't own a home in DC because this one took most of it, right? So I just simply said, what if you just sold it?
Yeah.
Well, she's all like, but I got a low rate. Well, I understand that, but now you have this X amount of cash, is like 200 some plus thousand that you'll have. You can go 100% financing a 4 unit, allow them, your tenants to pay for that. And now you have something that you can do right there and possibly now invest your money into something else.
That's really smart, dude.
And, she was just like, now she's thinking about that. And so those are the things, because a lot of times we hoard real estate, right?
Yeah.
We're hoarding it because we get so emotionally attached to the interest rate, what it has. So it just kind of, we put the blindfolds on, not really realizing there's a bigger picture.
So I think those are two, those could be two parts of the same coin, is that you hoard it in one hand and then you underutilize it. If you have the place and the space to utilize, I was a property on the west side the other day, and I was just kind of walking around. A new friend of mine, and he has an event space, and he does some Airbnb, and he's like, "Oh yeah," and then I'm gonna do this with this. And do that. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what a great use of that space!" But I'm like, "How did you find this place?" And he said, "It's been sitting here unused for years." And I was like, okay,
got it.
So the underutilization can actually cost you money. Does he have to sacrifice some way of life because he's sharing some of the back space? It's nearly a 1/4 acre lot. Jeez. And he has a main house that he built out, converted the garage. It's Airbnb. There's a space to live in the back with room for an ADU. And still, there's activity areas and all sorts. I'm like, okay, so this guy has a vision. It was underutilized. It's coming into utilization, which then is going to be a revenue maker.
Yeah. I mean, I forgot to mention there's a $2,500 deficit.
What $2,500 deficit? What do you
monthly?
Mean? Oh,
so monthly out of pocket from her because of the Airbnb. And so I'm like,
so she's losing on it.
Exactly.
Oh,
you know what I mean? So
no bueno.
Not good.
Okay.
Not good. Always look at your numbers. Always. Everything's about identifying your best exit strategy, So an investment that's not paying on its own is just not considered a good one.
Yeah,
and she's emotionally
attached a loser.
To the rate.
Exactly.
Oh, man. Rough.
And that's because you're trying, new things. You're trying to Airbnb. You're trying to now seeing things are changing. Things change so quick right now.
Yeah.
Excuse me. You have to learn to adjust. You have to become a chameleon and just go out there and adjust.
Yeah.
That's why I suggested, hey, put pickleball, put
do something.
cornhole, do something with it where it's just going to attract more people. So
wow. Okay. Well, that's a good share right there, Memo. So we're going to move quickly to mortgage refinance demand surging 27% as interest rates drop for the third straight week. Now, this one's got a little bit of dust on it. This is from last week, but I brought it up for a reason. Back to the whole life situation, the life event thing. How many times this year have we talked about people getting to the end of the year and needing money? Yeah. And they need money in December. And I pulled this specifically because these are numbers that are from November. So these numbers in here reflect November over November numbers, week over week numbers, and it's exactly what we're talking about. We're at the end of the year, we're going to see people tap their house for money because they need it, whether it's paying off expenses, buying something big, consolidating debt, whatever it is. And here we go. I mean, when's the last time you saw mortgage rate demand surge 27%? Like, when? August, maybe. When rates plummeted.
August, September.
Okay, so 5 months ago. But guess what? This is why it's important for me to talk about this one today with you guys and for the audience. Is there was a reason back then financially because the rates were there. Well, we don't have the rates here. Then what's causing this? The demand and the need.
Correct. Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
What do you make of this?
Well, it's getting to the end of the season, the most, the highest spending seasons of the year. So a lot of people that have been carrying balances on their their credit cards, they got to find more space to put on the Christmas spendings or just, to get through the year. So I know a few clients. I got one client that we were helped out, and they're going to be closing next week, and they cashed out, refinanced, paid half of their debt, and basically they're happy going into next year, missing 2 payments because of the fact that they were too high in all their credit card payments. And it's unfortunate, but, they have that ability to tap into their house, and they've used it plenty of times to be able to, get out of debt. So I think, it's like you said, it's the need. They get to the point where it's like, I don't have any other option but to.
Then you have a lot of people that are just like to keep up with the Joneses, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they're going to go at it and, hey, let me just tap in. So again, there's nothing wrong with what you do. You just got to know how you're doing it. You have to have a strategy behind it. It's like something like, what is it? Just to pay off everything, and then what are you going to do? Are you going to just kind of follow the same trend, or are you going to get out of that trend and really make a difference, for yourself financially and your family?
So I had several motives for bringing this up today with you guys. Number one was, this is what we've been talking about. So there's a little bit of a validator for us. Like, hey, we've been saying this for a long time. The house for some people is going to be their savior in 2024, and it may be in the end of the year, maybe in whatever. And also because this whole, the quarters shifted, the summer felt like spring, fall felt like summer, winter's feeling like fall. all. And so some of that I think is what we see here. But that's part one. The other part is that it's evidence that no matter whatever else the market might be doing, when someone needs help and the house is there to help them, they're going to do it. The other thing is that you have purchase applications up 4% higher week over week, year over year. So if you had them higher this year than you did last year, that to me that signals a psychological shift.
Yeah.
Preparedness. So psychology has changed. Number one, people have an appetite for buying. 2, preparedness, they're getting ready. And number 3, they're doing exactly what we're trying to tell people to do right now. If you're looking to buy a house in the new year, start right now. That starts by putting your purchase application in. And I guarantee you, people that have their purchase apps in right now, they're not closing before Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
They're closing after Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
But they took their first step before Christmas, before New Year, and even in this evidence, in this data set, probably right before Thanksgiving, actually, if I'm being super honest about when this was originated. So I think this, again, is people listening to what we've been saying for months.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
Exactly.
and I had some good friends just this last week. They messaged me and they're like, "Hey, we started going and seeing houses, during the weekend. We've actually been doing it for like over a month since Thanksgiving." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Like, why didn't you guys call me sooner?" They're like, "Well, we didn't know like how to start the process. So we actually have a few questions for you." And they're like, "Okay, well, is it FHA rate? Is the FHA loan better for me or conventional?" And I'm like, "Well, how'd you guys start the process?" We went on Google. We started researching everything, and then kind of just went out there and started doing what we read and kind of got information on. But then it got to the point where it's like, okay, I don't understand this. I don't get what this means. So my buddy Michael, he came last week. Yeah. He's like, hey, me and my fiance are trying to buy a house. We started looking at houses. We have a realtor, but when do you think it's the right time to run my credit and actually do the full force? So I'm like, well, it's towards the end of the year, but if you want to strike when the iron's hot, you got to get ready as soon as possible, because what's going to happen is things will slow down for a few weeks going into the new year. But then as soon as they pick back up, what if you see a property you like and then you're not pre-approved, you're pre-qualified, and you try to submit an offer, but it takes too long to get that pre-approval, and now you're a little bit out. Now, if you're pre-approved beforehand, you're already, your credit's already looked at, your income's already looked at, your assets already looked at, so you can maneuver a lot quicker. So they sent in their application literally this morning, and they're like, okay, thank you for letting me know. But still, they started the process by just reading stuff online, getting ready online. And then once they were ready for the actual, like, hey, now I can't take it further than this, then they reached out. But I was like, you want to get ready the soonest possible, because then you have all this time to pivot and make corrections if you have to.
And I'm glad that they do that kind of work, like go in there and Google it first. And then once you meet with your lender, it'll all break down, like it'll make more sense, right? Because you're going to read that. Now you can actually put the puzzle together. So I like that.
It's cool because they read it beforehand before understanding it, and then it's easier to put together than telling them up front what it is, and then they have to go research it, and it still doesn't make sense. At least they come with the prior knowledge of like, I've read this at least before.
No, you get a lot of aha moments at that time.
Yeah, right? That's what that means. PMI. Okay,
right,
cool.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and this is the right time for people to ask those questions. I mean, mortgage refinancing. I know this was like refinance demand. You're talking about a purchase situation, but they're to me, it indicates the same thing. Like people need to take action. What is the reason? What's upstream of that action? It's either a desire or a need. And I think that we're going to see a lot more of this in 2025.
Yeah, and here's a lot of things with people that own homes and refinance. They kind of see the refinance like, man, I'm going to have to do it again, right? People don't understand in different countries like Canada, they pretty much they don't have a 30-year mortgage.
Fixed. Yeah.
They don't have 30-year fixed mortgages. Yeah. The highest they have, I want to say, is like a 15-year.
I don't know.
It's a 10-year. It's a 10-year, right? And so the average person that owns a home in Canada refinances every 3 to 4 years.
Wow.
It's just what it is.
Wow.
Because their payments are so high. I mean, like they have to exactly. And I think it's not a bad thing if you plan it correctly.
For us, that whole 2020 through 2022, I mean, that was such an anomaly. I mean, locking 15-year loans at 1.99 and VA loans at 2.25. Like I don't know what would happen that we would find ourselves back in that place again. It is such a asterisk on the history charts of rates that what we've seen these last couple of years, I don't want to say is normal, because it's also been the adverse effect of having that, because we have so many people with the lock-in effect and they're not moving and they love their rate and whatever. But I think that where we're kind of going towards of these extremes, that we're going to find our way somewhere in that middle space of that, not because it just sounds good.
Yeah.
But I think that's just this is a push and pull effect. Like we have an affordability problem still broadly for most people.
Exactly.
You know,
I like to bring up that if the numbers work now, do it now. We have how many clients did we not have that? Oh, I see rates are 5.25%. They didn't refinance, but they had a 6.25%, 6.5%, and they're like,
and now it's
we
back.
think rates are gonna go down, so we're just gonna wait.
Yeah.
And I just kept thinking it, but I didn't want to sound like that typical salesperson, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want to sound like that.
That's the stereotype. Oh, he's just trying to sell me on the
Correct.
loan.
But here's what a lot of us, it took me years to understand that. Listen, rates are reflected with the unemployment. Everything's about unemployment. Even though we've seen the Fed funds rate be reduced because of inflation, because of unemployment, things won't change.
Right.
It's not going to change. We saw unemployment go up this time around. And so what's going to happen? Is it tomorrow when the Fed meets?
Yeah.
Next
Well,
week?
it's today. It's on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
It's on Wednesday. Yeah.
So it'll be they're predicting 90% that they're going to reduce the Fed funds rate.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're going to have to in order to keep unemployment balanced.
Yeah.
You know?
You already saw the European Central Bank go ahead of our Fed, and they already did that last week.
They already did that. But is that going to reduce our interest rates? No, because our inflation is also higher than anticipated.
They're still fighting that.
So we're
teeter-tot.
They're teeter-totting. The government doesn't know. Our Uncle Powell they're trying to figure it out, guys.
They have to go figure it out over here. No.
Correct.
Come back, figure it over here.
So I currently have a client right now that we're helping. He's like, he tells me last week, I think I'm going to put a pause on it and wait till rates go down. I go, wait a minute. This is a cash out VA. You already, paid for an appraisal. We're already paid for a termite inspection. We're ready.
Oh, dude.
We're ready, right? And so I told him, don't make a decision now. Let me break it down for you. So you know how we do. We have that mortgage accelerator calculator. I broke everything down for him. Paying off $69,000 of his debt. He's getting $107,000. $10,000 of that is closing costs, impounds, etc. So he's gonna get around. I calculated around $96,000. $69,000 to pay off debt, which equates to $1,600 and change. Okay,
In monthly savings.
And yes, and one of them is an installment loan, and the other three are credit cards. So we already know those credit cards are gonna be higher. The installment is like 36. I want to say 36,000 or 33,000. Anyways, we already know the average time to pay off a credit card is 8 to 13 years.
Yeah.
We already know that, right? Because the credit companies, they're going to charge you minimum payments.
Yeah.
They're going to charge you minimum payments.
Most people will only pay that.
Right? So the payment increased by $800 and change for getting that $100,000, right?
So his payment went up by $800, but he's saving $1,600, so he's still net $800 a month.
So I put it on the mortgage accelerator. If we apply that $800, and let's say your interest rate doesn't change for 30 years, and we apply that savings, that $800 that you're already used to, and you apply it to build back your equity by applying that $800 towards your principal on a monthly basis, guess how many years we pay off the house?
7 years early?
It's actually pretty close. 9 years early. 21 years. Guess how much in interest he would save by just doing that?
Probably $135,000.
$341,000.
$340. Well, I guess I didn't know what the loan amount was.
Right?
I was just like shooting the shot in the dark right there. So
yeah.
Wow.
So the numbers make sense. So I broke everything down. I sent the email. I'm waiting for a response, but I think it's great. And then remember, in 8 months, we could revisit the VA IRRRLs.
Yeah. The IRRRL. Yeah. If that does end up
and then
happening.
You skip the 2 months, right? And then you get your impound money back.
And I'm following your math here.
$1,000.
And I did $96,000 minus the $69,000 payoff. He still has around $27,000 cash in his pocket, right?
Plus
Is that about right?
Yeah, correct.
Plus the 2 months of payments.
He's like 37 and another 5,000 because they just played their. So it's like
impound account.
And he wanted to do some home improvement. So that's enough.
Wow, that's a lot.
Enough. That's enough.
I mean, $800 a month is a big deal. Net positive, even after having paid off all that debt, paying $69,000 debt. Yes, adding $107,000 loan, but having 27 cash in your pocket, rattling around. That's a big deal.
It is.
So,
it is.
So hold on. Given all this that you've told us, what was the linchpin? They just didn't want to because of the rate?
They think the rate's going to go down, right? When we started the refi, we were looking at 5.875 and we locked in at 6.25 and no cost to him.
Okay. No cost to the
borrower. That's not buying
borrower.
rates, no buying nothing. You know what I mean? No buying the rate down or anything. Just get it right there. Save the money, put that in your pocket, right? Versus buying down the rate.
Okay.
So.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, so this right now, that you're telling me this is like that microcosm of why you see this number. So when we come on here and we tell you, oh, mortgage rates or mortgage demand for refinance is up 10%, or people go, why? Why would anyone want to refinance? Because the rates are da-da. It's not always about the rate. It's not always about the rate.
Yes, correct. It makes sense. So don't, that whole cliche, don't marry the rate, marry the home.
Yeah, date the
or
rate.
date the rate
Yeah.
and marry the home, like however you want to spin it.
Yeah.
It's what it is. If things work out, so I get it, things work out,
Yeah.
they work out. The
Yeah.
numbers are there.
Yeah.
Make sure that you understand how you can apply that. Again, we'll be more than happy to share the mortgage seller calculator. If you're going through this, I don't care what state you're in, we'll
Yeah.
give it to you.
Yeah,
Just ask for it.
give it to everybody. Mortgage accelerator calculator. Wow, $345,000 of interest.
$341,000. I remember it good because I wrote that yesterday. I put
That's
everything
crazy.
together.
Oh man! Wow.
And again,
what a good story.
We take time to do all these things because you care. You want to put them in a position where they're going to succeed.
Yeah.
I know they have a child. It's like, dude, $800. You know what that can actually do?
Yeah.
You know, even if you don't apply it back to your mortgage, you can invest that in your son's college or whatever.
Save it,
and then
529 plan, put it in the market. Like you could do all sorts of things.
There's so many things of how you can make money on your own money.
And that's what I've been telling clients, like, don't wait till you hit a home run with the rates and they tank. Like, take the stairs down, every single 6 to 8 months. If it makes sense, go ahead and refinance, because down the line, you'll be able to recuperate that one way or another. But even though you're alleviating like $200, $300, if you're smart with that money and you put it back down the line, you're going to be able to redo it again. And you're just going to be saving a lot more.
And if any of these predictions about next year are correct, there isn't going to be a massive race to the bottom for rates. It might just march its way down slowly and trickle down, and maybe not even by that much. So we're going to move on from there and go to our last article today, and how to track housing data and what's coming next. So this is from Housing Wire as well. And this is actually a personal pet project of the person who works at Housing Wire, whose watches about mortgage rates running higher, mortgage rates falling, and then kind of what activity happens around that time. Yeah. So I want to kind of just summarize. Some of this is validating, but some of this I think leaves us is open to interpretation for what it means moving forward. So let me preface it, and then we'll go to the questions, okay? So when mortgage rates were running higher earlier in the year, like 6.75, 7.5, the purchase application data had 14 negative prints, 2 flat prints, and 2 positive prints, meaning there was less mortgage application activity. When mortgage rates started falling in mid-June from the yearly peak of 7.5 back towards 6, the purchase applications had 12 positive prints, 5 negative, and 1 flat. So what you see is in the entire course of tracking all of these months, only 3 total flat prints. But when rates went down, 12 positive prints, rates went up, 14 negative prints. So this to me is that match and that intersection of people being aware in the market, their behavior, and their affordability. So what do you think, given that this is kind of showing that it's obviously everyone trending in one direction when it's high and everyone trending in the other direction when it goes low, do you think that this is fair for us to expect the exact same thing in next year? If we have a tighter window of, let's say, 5.5 to 6.5 for rates, do you think it's still fair that we'll see just as much negative prints when the rates go up to 6.5 or when they go down to, let's say, 5.5?
I mean, this is data that's been collected. I'm going to say it's going to be the same trend.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Because, I mean, obviously we saw throughout the year when rates went up in October, it got quiet. But when rates dropped before October,
everybody was rattling the cage.
We got a lot more, causing a lot more action. So I do believe that, as the rates do fluctuate, and again, they talk about the ranges of what they've already been speaking about of what's going to happen in 2025. So I do believe that, there's going to be those highs, there's going to be those dips, and then you are going to see people run to the applications once rates drop a little bit, and then digress once they go right back up.
Okay, what do you think, Memo? I have a takeaway. I just wanted to ask you guys first what you think is going to happen.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm going with this, so break it down, Andy.
So here's what I'm going to say people should do. So given the fact that people slow down when rates are on the way up and they speed up when the rates are on the way down, what I'm going to tell you is the first week or month you see rates go from their localized high to their next pit stop low, that's when you start.
Yeah.
You start your application right there, because the subsequent weeks, if it is trending in that downward trajectory, will end up going into that bottom rounded out 5.5 or 6 if you're starting at 7. So given that, I'm going to go back and say this very clearly, there were very little mortgage applications from 6.75 to up to 7.5. But then from 7.5 down to 6, a really steep increase
was a
of
positive.
applications. Yes. So the point here is if going back to our roller coaster at the top of the show,
Yeah.
if I drew this out as a graph and you see the rate bend going up to 7.5, right as it kind of tips over to 7.25, that is when you need to start your
applications.
That is when you need to start.
Yeah.
Or maybe even I'd argue start on the way up as it's going to its potential peak. Start there because it'll crest and then come back down, and you're already going to be in position to win.
And that's what I'm like referring to. If you just stay ready, you'll be able to catch those dips and those highs. And it's easier to stay connected with your, professional mortgage lender and ask them, hey, where rates are at, instead of you trying to, find it in the market or trying to, find it, through social media. Although those resources are great, half the time when it gets to you, it's already a few days to maybe a week out. So you want to hear from somebody that's in daytime, actually listening to day in, day out, because the data is going to be a lot more accurate than if you hear from, your resources and on the internet. But I would say just make sure you keep it honest. Go research in the online and then ask a mortgage professional or a realtor.
So Brian, quick question. We're on the internet saying this.
Yes.
What's the difference?
I do
I mean, we're sending this to our people that listen to us all the time. So,
Yeah.
we're giving them direct that day in, day out, information.
Brian is right. So I'm just teasing Brian. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm teasing. Happy belated 30th birthday, by the way. I'm teasing because, we are on the internet saying this. So aren't we also guys on the internet talking about rates? Yeah, we are. But every single day we're looking at rates because the market's open, our screens are open, and we can see live pricing.
Yeah.
So you may be watching this a day, a week, a month, or however many months from the day we recorded it. But every single day we can tell you what's going on in the market.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the market, you're either refinancing, purchasing, stay in constant communication with somebody that can just give you information on a regular basis, whether it's going to be on a weekly, daily, however you want to, whatever you can tolerate, right?
Yeah.
But I do like that advice, Andy, where you're saying if the rate's at 7.5% and you see it go down to a 7.25%, that's probably a good indicator to start saying hey, let me get in there, right?
Yep.
One of my biggest beliefs is don't always follow the herd.
Mm-hmm.
Right? People who always follow the herd are the ones that have the whole FOMO also, and then they have the tendency of making an irrational decision and not putting themselves in the best position possible.
Yeah.
So when everybody's following the herd, everybody's buying everything, that's where the wars come. That's where the sellers are no longer providing these incentives. Mm-hmm. That's where everything just starts changing.
I'm glad you said that.
Prepare yourself, when, like you said.
I'm glad you said that because I think sometimes I can come across, and I'm just specifically putting a mirror on myself right now. I think sometimes I can come across like I'm talking to everybody, like everybody should buy a house. I'm not saying that. I'm talking to those of you who are seeking out mortgage and real estate information because you're in the pursuit of buying a house.
Yeah.
You're who I'm talking to. I'm not talking to everybody. So, we sometimes get a comment like, oh, I'll never do this or I'll never do that. Well, then I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the people who they are looking for a solution in their life. They need help. They're struggling financially and they're private about it. They haven't told anybody that they're swimming in $69,000 of debt, but they're going to need to use their house to get themselves out of a trouble spot. They're going to get kicked out of their rental place. They got to buy a home. They're moving. Their job's changed. They're divorced. Like, come on, you name it. That's who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
And the herd doesn't always know what's best for you, especially when the herd's conditions and variables aren't the same as yours.
Yeah.
If they're not the same, stop listening to them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, hey, everybody, we have a lot of investors that we work with. I myself work with investors, right? Do I always go and buy the house that's already readily available for me? Or do I try to buy a house that's already discounted, right? Do I follow the herd and say, hey, I want this turnkey? I'd rather buy one and then make it turnkey and do whatever I decide. Yeah. So there's different appetites for different people.
Well, and that goes back to you having a team. Like we talked to everybody here, like you need to have a team behind you. If we're on that mortgage, if we're with the mortgage coach on that team for you, Memo's talking about having a team, whether it's fellow investors, but it's also the contractor and all the people involved and the architect and everything from top to tail in that whole deal. It's not just, you yourself bootstrap it on your own.
So don't go buying Bitcoin at 100K.
Oh, geez.
So this is, what I put here is one of my thoughts. This article emphasizes the importance of leveraging real-time data to stay ahead of housing market.
Boom. Right? Great point.
So that's what I put right there. And it's good for us, for all of us.
Yep.
I like to follow it. I want to find opportunities. And so there's always due diligence that I have to do behind it.
Yeah.
Similar to the advice that I gave earlier about that person wanting to build ADUs. There's data that you have to go.
Yep.
And there's stuff that you have to do due diligence, right? Knowing the data would be your sales comparables in the area to see if your home's going to be even that valuable to add those units.
But that's also why I feel like, like we said, it's so important to talk to somebody that knows the ins, because a lot of people could take that data but not really know how to apply it.
Correct.
And you bridge that perfectly with your client when she's like, hey, I want to do this because I have the knowledge of what can be done. Theoretically, I've seen it, I've read it. She's probably, spent a lot of time investigating it. But you're like, hey, you can't really do that, or it's going to take this, and that. What about you still stick on the goal of real estate, but just focus on this aspect?
Yeah.
And it completely opened up a world of saying that, hey, how you took the insights and was able to bridge the data.
Yeah.
So I think that's a killer combination.
For all of these reasons you guys are talking about, I think that we're going to see a really nice thing happen in 2025. I think we're going to see increased sales activity in the new year, because I think there's going to be this like meeting of the minds. There's pent up seller demand. There just is. You're going to start seeing more current home inventory, not new sale inventory, but current inventory come to the market because of pent up seller demand. And again, they're going to have life changes that necessitate them selling their house, whether we like it or not, whether the market's in their favor or not. At the same time, if rates do kind of hover and keep this nice padded zone between, let's say, 6 and 7 or 5.5 and 6, that's going to give people a more predictable outlook on their own personal affordability and what they can go confidently look for. If those two roads can converge and match, where buyers who are can afford and who are like chomping at the bit to buy, and sellers who are pent up their demand, they just need to put their place in the property, I think we could see a nice uptick in sales inventory next year.
Absolutely.
In that space.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's very possible, because I've tried to argue in prep for the show today. I was like, okay, poke holes in that argument. And I was like, okay, well, it could be this. Well, what if this happened? And there's always going to be some outlier situation that could cause this whole theory to blow up. But I think that given what we know now, given what we have, all the data for 2024, looking in 2025 and what things are or are not changing, I think that we could actually see a lot of increased sales activity in the new year.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, and there's now more to select from.
Yeah.
We talked about this earlier in a different podcast. Our buyers are actually putting offers on properties, multiple offers.
That's right.
On different properties. Hey, I don't like this one after they do the home inspection. Well, the seller's not, doing the improvement, so they back out of it and they go somewhere else.
Just think about it, from 36 months ago, it was sellers getting to pick their buyer. Now it's buyers getting to pick their home in some cases. So that's tilted.
And that's when you're talking about not following the herd.
Yeah.
You go ahead and you do those things right now that there's not a lot of buyers out on the market right now because of the rates. So this is the good time. We already know that rates will go down.
Yeah.
So just like the saying says, what goes up must come down. It will.
Yeah.
So it's just having being patient.
Yeah, I'm really optimistic about the new year, guys. I think that, again, I know we've had we've endured in 2023. We had a lot of time to endure in 2024 as well, but I think that, not just to be, definitely not to be salesy. I just see that there's going to be a lot more opportunities for people who are going to be coming into the market in 25 than even there were in 24.
Correct. I agree 100%. I mean, again, it boils down to simple economics, supply and demand. We're not building enough homes for it to go around where prices of homes are going to go lower.
Yeah.
And everybody was talking about like, hey, we're going to see the mortgage meltdown like we did in 2008. It's been 4 years since we've been hearing that.
That whole thing
hasn't
underpinned
happened
by the financial markets. I mean, that was a big rug pull because of a lot of things. It's not even the same argument now that it was back then.
So
it's not even the same.
But what happened to those conversations, right?
I know. Well,
so
I know. Sorry, I'm not trying to be mean about it. I just like that. To me, it's a stupid argument at the top, not because you're saying it. It's just these people that are saying that. It's like the entire conditions of the market were completely different. Yeah. It's not even, it's apples and oranges. It's not even apples to apples conversation. Yeah. The only word that's the same is mortgage.
Yeah, there you go. Well, my biggest advice is we are coming to the end of the year.
Yeah.
Now's the time to start your strategy, your new plan for 2025. Right. What's going to put you in the financial situation that you currently want to be in, or that you're not in and want to be in. So plan it. Surround yourself with the people that can take you there.
Yeah.
Whether it's this year, you're looking in 2025, you're looking to invest in the stock market and kind of have that goal of like, hey, let me leverage my home. Let me see by going to a lower interest rate, putting that money, applying it there. Or you're looking to build an ADU, whatever it may be. Yeah. Now is the time to start looking into that.
Yeah. Good. What was your favorite part of the show today, guys?
I think that first article, the 2025 prediction, your playbook for a winning year, I think it brought out a lot of good examples, a lot of good insights, and we were able to really, have a good conversation over it. Yeah, awesome. It was really, really productive.
How about
Mine
you,
was actually the last one, it's just data. Data is everything. Data is the key to, being successful. Data is going to be the key to know your numbers. So if you're going to invest into something, having that data behind you and seeing the history of what that uptake or downtake may have been, it's a good thing to know. So I'm with you, Andy, now. It's about data because it's so true, right? It just doesn't lie to you. It's good to see that history. Today, when I saw that graph, with the stocks and all that, it just brought so insight. I'm like, man, it really got me like, I need to put more into my stocks, right? Because it's not timing of the market, it's time in the market, you know? And so I like that. Data is everything. That is key.
I'm going with the last article as well, how to track housing data, know what's coming next. When you really step back and you start looking at all the things that we are assuming to be true, known to be true is another way of saying that. The data aspects, the pinpoints, those things where we see, okay, rates are doing this, inventory is doing this, mortgage applications doing this. That all tells a story. Yeah. And when you scrape back all those layers, that story is indicating to you several things happening, which I don't think we've been caught off guard by this year. I know that there's a lot of economic variables that go into rates and inventory and the migration of people, and unemployment's another thing, interest rates, inflation. Yeah. Look, it's a lot of stuff. But I honestly am optimistic about 2025, even more than I was about 2024. I was excited about what we were going to do in 2024. I was looking at the market going, I have no clue exactly how this is going to go. But I think I have right now, given everything we have now as a constant, with even negligible change into the new year, I think that we are very primed for a very good 2025. Yeah. Not our business. I mean, for housing in general, at large, and the ability for us to help people now in other states, I think it's going to be a great leverage for people who trusted us here to trust us out there as well.
No, absolutely. Great point.
Yep. Yeah. Perfect. So thank you guys. We have only one more show left in this year.
Can't believe that.
And then we'll reveal our brand new 2025 show and look and all that. So you can all join us again. All join us back again next week for our last show. But thank you all for watching. Remember to like the show, subscribe to the channel, and forward us to a friend, family member, or loved one who you want to help see win in mortgage and real estate. And Will, Brian, and myself will see you for our final show of 2024 next week. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
See ya.